Hey guys, welcome back. So today we want to talk about the 5.7 by 28 millimeter cartridge. Right here I have one of the little fellas, and it's sitting next to a 223/556 round. Both these are Federal products, and this gives you an idea of what the 5.7 looks like next to a 5.56. They share a common bullet diameter, but from there the resemblances part vastly. One is definitely a moderate powered handgun cartridge, and the other is an intermediate rifle cartridge with considerably more power. But what we want to talk about in today's video are the top 5 firearms that I think that they're currently available on the market, that chamber the 5.7 by 28 millimeter. Now this is really cool because just a few years ago we only had 2 firearms to choose from, and both of them were made by FN. You had the 5.7 pistol and the PS90 carbine. And today in 21 and soon to be 22, we have 6 commercially available mass-produced products that are out there on the market. There might be some smaller companies making things I'm not aware of, but 5 of those we have here to show you this afternoon to kind of talk about how the 5.7 is gaining in popularity, and that's actually a pretty good thing. But before we get started with today's video, guys, if you enjoy the content we produce here at the Military Arms channel, please take a moment to click the link in the video description below and become part of our Patreon family. If you do that, you'll get early access to videos like this one. You'll have direct access to me. I answer all private communications, plus some other perks. So click that link in the video description below. With all that being said, let's get started with today's video in the 5.7 by 28 millimeter cartridge. The first firearm to become commercially available on the US market would have been the FN 5.7, a very early version of this handgun, roughly right around 2004. But the handgun made its debut on the world stage in the late 1990s. It would just take a few years for them to trickle out into civilian production. The early guns looked quite different than this one, but they've gone through evolutionary changes over the years, this being the most current version of the gun, which is also now offered in flat dark earth. This handgun, natively with a flush fit magazine, will hold 20 rounds of the 5.7 ammunition. So it is quite capable of holding a lot of ammunition in a fairly lightweight gun. Polymer receiver, polymer outer shell up here on the slide. Of course, you have a metal barrel and metal components inside the receiver and lower receiver of the gun. But it's still a very lightweight handgun, even when it has a full 20-round magazine. This gun became quite controversial because anti-gunners hated the fact that it held 20 rounds. They touted the fact that it was designed to penetrate armor, but that ammunition is not readily available on the commercial market. For us to own a 9mm with the right cartridge in it, right load, can actually defeat level 2 armor just as easily as this can with the ammunition you can't get. So the 5.7 pistol really was, I think, a fairly big hit for FN. This was, again, the first opportunity the civilian market got to play with the new cartridge. And a lot of people carry them even to this day. So it's a neat little handgun that has some pretty interesting features on it. And also this gun did surprisingly well in our gauntlet tests. If you guys haven't checked out Primary Arms online, please swing by and check out their website. They have all sorts of inventory that ranges from firearms to accessories, really good prices, fast shipping, outstanding customer support. If you use the code MAC and you purchase a PA branded optic or red dot sight with a magnified optic, you'll get a free scope mount with that MAC code. Or if you pick up a red dot sight or a prism sight, you'll get a free kill flash anti-reflective device. So please check out primaryarms.com. But the first firearm that we were introduced to through the media that became part of NATO was the original P90 submachine gun. This is the gun that the 5.7 cartridge was designed around. And it was designed for a PDW, or personal defense weapon, that would be short and hold a lot of ammunition and be extremely powerful and capable of defeating level 2 armor that would be, I forget the military designation of it, but basically a NATO standard armor that wouldn't stop normal handgun rounds. And so it was designed for that purpose, again, using a very specially designed cartridge for it. So we wouldn't see that PS90, the civilian version, until the 2000s. And that was this little gun. Now this is an SBR, but it would come with a 16-inch barrel, chambers the 5.7, uses the 50-round top-loading magazine, has, cast metal, I'm assuming it's aluminum up here, lots of polymer throughout, a very short, handy gun. I remember in the mid-90s going to Knob Creek and shooting one of these in full auto and just dreaming about getting my hands on one, and it would take almost, a decade for FN to release one to the commercial market. But as a submachine gun, this thing was pretty darn cool. It's so small and short, light, handy. It would be great for tank crews, officers, things like that that need something more powerful and more utilitarian than just a simple handgun for self-defense. And so this little gun went on to be quite popular, and still to this day, when they show up for sale, they generally sell pretty quickly, even though they have that goofy 16-inch barrel. But at least one U.S. company, at least intermittently, will offer U.S.-made short barrels so you can SBR your PS90 and make it into a P90-ish clone, which I've done here. It also has a suppressor on it, but with its bird cage, it would be a very, very short, handy little package. But the 5.7 itself isn't as powerful as some folks have made it out to be, and I'm not going to pick on any of my peers in social media, but it's been said by some that it's basically a 5.56 cartridge, and it's not. Now, you can get specialty ammunition, and we have 2 loads here from Elite Ammunition. This stuff is expensive, but it definitely increases the power and functionality of the 5.7, because the standard commercial offerings from FN are pretty neutered, pretty watered down. A standard cartridge like this is only going to have a little shy of 400 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle, where a 5.56 is going to have more like 1,300 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. There's no comparison to be made between the 5.7 and the 223 or 5.56, which some have made that comparison in the past. It's not a rifle cartridge, it's very much a pistol cartridge. Another thing that's interesting is that the cartridge has no real taper to it, and it had to be coated in a polymer coating that allowed it, because of the pressures it operates at for a blowback gun like the P90 and the lack of a taper, that polymer makes, it's kind of acts like a lubricant that allows the gun to easily extract and eject that spent case. Reloaders will have trouble with this, because if you tumble the brass, you'll wipe away that polymer coating, and it will make it less reliable potentially in the firearm that you're shooting it out of. So that's a little bit of 5.7 history that some of you may not know about. But these specialty cartridges definitely up the game in the guns, lethality, performance, all that good stuff. So we've taken a look at the 2 original FN products. Now let's take a look at some recently new developments that just hit the US market in the last few years, starting kind of a 5.7 boom and people really starting to take a look at it again. If you guys have been watching the channel for any length of time at all, you'll know that I actually wear a Groove Life ring. I've been wearing these rings for quite some time because my actual wedding band is valuable to me, and I keep it in the safe. I did damage it, which started me on the course to look for something to replace it, that if I did damage it, I really didn't care. And I stumbled into Groove Life rings, and I've come to really like them. You can get them engraved with your name or something like that. On this ring I have Mac. They do have a lifetime warranty, so if you damage it or destroy it, they'll replace it for free. They also introduced a new belt, and this is the new Groove Life belt. Has a unique clasp system on it, so it has a hook and then a magnet, and so when you thread this through your belt loops, put them together, automatically locks, very tight fit, and the belt itself does have some elasticity to it, so when you bend over and things like that, it doesn't become uncomfortable. I'll put a link in the video description below so you can check out some of the Groove Life products. One of the newer offerings out there is the CMMG Banshee. This is obviously heavily based on the AR-15 type rifle. This one is a pistol with a short barrel, and it has what looks like a fairly standard AR-15 upper receiver. It has a dedicated lower receiver that accepts the FN magazines for the 5.7 pistol. Now we have 20-round magazines. There's also aftermarket 30-round magazines that are available for the 5.7 FN firearms, the pistol, and of course the CMMG Banshee. This gun is part of a whole line of Banshee type firearms that use an interesting radial delay system before they open up. They typically chamber handgun cartridges like 10mm, 9mm, 45 ACP, and 5.7. all of which use that radial delay system in the Banshee series. Now, the 5.7 is a high pressure operating cartridge, but it doesn't generate a whole lot of recoil. That's one of its selling points. It really doesn't generate much recoil at all. So you'll notice that the bolt carrier on this has some pretty significant lightning cuts done to it. And then you can also see the face of the bolt and just how tiny the head of the 5.7 cartridge is as compared to a 5.56 cartridge. But it uses standard charging handles and things like that, and that makes it fairly popular with people that have AR-15s and like that particular format when it comes to firearms, either pistols or rifles. The overall quality of the CMMG Banshees is really, really good. You know, it's got a lighter weight spring and buffer in it for the 5.7. It has, you know, the standard AR-15 buffer tube, so it is using a buffer tube out here, and it has a buffer with a spring in there. It's pretty cool. It has extended functionality in that it has ambi controls. You'll notice that the magazine release is larger on this, and it operates in a different locking point because it's a handgun magazine. And then it has a standard ping pong paddle over here for a bolt release, or if you push on the bottom side, a manual bolt lock. So the CMMG Banshee, I think, has been a fairly popular gun in general out there. How many of them are in circulation in the 5.7? I don't know, but it certainly is an interesting option on the market. So the original FN 5.7 pistol has gone up and down in price over the years, but generally speaking, they're right around $1,100 if you can find one in stock somewhere. They've always seemed to be relatively scarce. If you're looking for one, many times you have to look all over the place to actually find one, and occasionally your local gun shop may get one in. But you're going to pay a premium for this handgun, so the next gun that came out in 2019 was something that I was really looking forward to, and that's the Ruger 5.7 pistol. Now this pistol is a lightweight polymer handgun. Of course, it doesn't have the polymer slide or polymer components to the slide like the FN pistol has. It's an all-metal upper. It is cut for optics, so I have a Vortec optic on this one. It's optional, something that the 5.7 doesn't offer that I'm aware of. Maybe there's a brand new version out that does. I just haven't seen it. But this one has a pick rail underneath it, much like the 5.7 pistol from FN. This one has ambi controls in a conventional location, where the FN pistol has the selector lever up here above the trigger. You have more of a 1911 style safety on the Ruger. The Ruger is lightweight feeling as the 5.7, and it's very shootable. Nice long barrel, great sights if you don't opt to go with the red dot sight, and a fairly decent trigger. Some folks have complained about the trigger. If anything, it's just a little bit heavy with some over travel, but it's not a horrible trigger. Again, the recoil impulse on these and the 5.7 pistol are very, very minimal. You can shoot these guns and they stay really, really flat, and the high velocity bullet of the 5.7 cartridge also is a flat shooting cartridge, so at typical handgun engagement distances, you're not going to see a whole lot of bullet drop out of them. That's one of the benefits to the cartridge. Now, this gun also has a 20-round magazine, but this one is made out of steel versus the polymer magazine of the original 5.7 pistol. The two are not interchangeable, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. If you already have a 5.7 pistol and you bought a Ruger, it would be nice to be able to interchange magazines, or perhaps pick up the lower cost Ruger magazines to put in your FN. Not going to happen. But good gun, accurate. It's been reliable for me, and I think it's a great option out there because this one generally sells for right around $800 or a little less, where that FN is going to be up over $1,000 depending on where it's being sold from. So you're going to save a few $100, but in my opinion, it's a better option for somebody that's just wanting to stick their toe in the water in the 5.7 pistol market. I would rather go with the Ruger and decide perhaps it's not for me than spend a bunch more money on an FN and decide perhaps it's not for me. Another gun that's just recently dropped on the US market is the Keltec P50 handgun. Now, this is typical Keltec construction. It makes extensive use of sheet metal stampings and polymer components. Makes for a very lightweight handgun, and even with the 50-round magazine, and it uses standard PS90, P90 50-round magazines, even with a full magazine as a handgun, it's still quite shootable for most folks. However, if you need a brace, there are a couple of different companies making mounting options for braces. This one is a custom Smith, I think it is, brace adapter that attaches to the rear of the gun and gives you a pick rail back here. So then I've installed an SB Tactical side folding brace. The gun has a little lever on the bottom side, hinges open, and that's how you load the firearm. Really, really interesting product from Keltec. Now, this gun's been extremely reliable for me. It is actually pretty darn accurate as well, and it's a typical Keltec product. I mean, we have a waiting list over at Copper for these things. People really seem to like them. Keltec, just in general, has really innovative products. If you go back over the years and look at all the products they brought out, people get excited about them and they always say, oh, what are they making, 10 of them a day? No, in actuality, they're making thousands of these things a month. It's just the market out there is hungry for Keltec products, despite the fact a lot of people pick on them because of their choices in terms of materials used in the construction of many of their firearms. But overall, I was really happy to see the P50 hit the market. It's one of my favorite 5.7 guns to shoot. And so, yeah, if you see one out there, you might want to pick one up and play around with it, because it's certainly a different breed of firearm in terms of all the guns that are available in the particular cartridge we're talking about, that being the 5.7 by 28. So these are the 5 different 5.7 firearms that I've chose for the top 5 5.7 firearms that are out there. I said earlier in the video I was aware of 6 different products. Actually, we just remembered there was a 7th. So the one gun that's missing from this lineup is the DB Arms, Diamondback Arms. I think it's a DB57 pistol. I had a chance to shoot one at the Epic shoot a couple of years ago. I've just never been able to get my hands on one. And another one that goes back further in time, and that is the 5.7 AR, which was an AR-15 that top fed with a standard PS90 magazine and ejected the spent case through the magazine well of a standard AR-15 lower. I'm not sure if they're still in production, but you may be able to find one out there somewhere if you're interested in picking up a gun like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed taking a look at some of the 5.7 cartridges, or some of the guns that are available for the 5.7 cartridge out there on the market. It's certainly an interesting cartridge. It's kind of neat to see it start to get some traction finally after a couple of decades of the cartridge actually being on the market. We're finally starting to see some actual real choices in firearms for those of you wanting to play with it, because it is pretty darn fun. It's kind of like the 10 millimeter. The 10 millimeter for a long time was cool. It had a cult following, but not many companies were making guns for it because it kind of petered off due to the 40 Smith & Wesson. And then if you take a look at 2021, 10 millimeter guns are being offered by everybody now. And the same thing with the 5.7. Very boutique market in the beginning at the early 2000s to now in 2021, 2 decades later, we're finally starting to see some market acceptance with the cartridge. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. If you want to support us here at the Military Arms channel, again, there's a link in the video description below to become part of our Patreon family. Also, right here on YouTube, got a little join button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Mash that join button, and you can support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. And last but not least, guys, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Thank you for 13 years of support, and we'll talk to you guys soon.